Fantastic. Welcome, everyone.
Hello there.
My 3D printer just finished behind me, but I think I can hear some happening. Maybe I'm making up. I just, it's like always going on in my workshop now. Yeah, Scott's pointing. So, Scott, what are you 3D printing at the moment?
Some earpieces for Boba Fett.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I upgraded. My poor little Ender 3 is over in the corner gathering dust, while the Bamboo P1P is starting to crank out some ABS. So
Nice.
I printed a Boba Fett helmet and I left it in the car for like 3 hours, thinking everything would be okay, and it slowly.
No. Yeah, that might work in Ireland, but not in Texas.
Under the weight of itself, it's insane. And I spend a lot of time with the heat gun trying to massage it, but apparently it needs a little something that I can't quite determine what. So I just decided I'm going to print a new one in ABS, and that won't happen again. So
Right.
but I'd almost finished the paint job. I've done all this work, and this thing is retarded. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Battle damaged? Could it be a battle damaged Boba Fett helmet? I apologise. I've kicked it off again with 3D chat.
Oh wow, that's a
Oh,
piece
nice.
of work. That
That looks so good.
yeah.
Squished somehow. It's just not quite the way it should be. After all that paint and all that work, it's just so. Yeah, you did it again. It's your fault.
Yeah.
So how long does something like that take to print then? How long
I
does it
couldn't
take
make out what you said.
I said, how long does that take to print, Scott?
Well, that one was in 4 major pieces, so I had 3 or 4 days to print everything, generally.
You get on the Ender
at least
or the Bamboo?
That's on the Ender. The Bamboo is considerably faster.
Yeah, I'm like this close to buying one of the Bamboo H2D things, and my willpower is waning each and every single day. It's going to be an impulse purchase sooner than later.
Well, I
okay, so
do have inside info there.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had dreamed about this one for quite some time, but the price dropped from like 700 to 400, and I had to. So
You can't not do it at that price point. It's crazy.
no, you really can't. And then you can print an enclosure for it and save, $100 and go through way more effort than you should.
we've lost Owen. Owen's gone onto the Bamboo Lab website. That's
Yeah.
I heard I've got inside info and then my stream dropped. So impart unto me this wisdom, old plastic Barbie man.
Unfortunately,
Tell me
man,
all
I
about
can't repeat it. It's already it's out there. I can't say it again.
There's no way you can rewatch this stream. Yeah, or the archive,
No.
which is linked below.
Once it's on the internet, it's lost for good.
Yeah.
Isn't that how that works?
Dear.
Hey, so look, let's mention guitars for a moment.
Well,
Just before we went online, I was chatting to Dave about what he's working on, which I'll ask you to repeat in a moment for us, Dave. But Dave mentioned this idea, and it's something that happens to me sort of a lot, but there's an added twist, which I'll get to in a moment, which is when you get to the end of a build and you start rushing because you're desperate to see it done, and you start making mistakes.
yeah.
I think I mentioned I had the Brighton Guitar Show at the start of last month, and I had 2 guitars. Was it 2 or was it 3? It was 2 guitars where I broke the scratch plates on both the night before because I was making changes and I was trying to do it all really fast. And normally with a scratch plate, I hand screw them on. I had my little electric screwdriver, which has a torque control on it, which is great because I can set it low, and when I set it low, I know it's not going to over tighten. But they were acrylic, hand painted pick guards, and I obviously didn't have it on the low torque, and I broke. It was depressing. But that was just rushing to make changes and get things done.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with me, I start a project and I have all good intentions to, take my time to put everything together, work it all out, how it's going to fit together and everything. But as it gets on, you then start to wonder, and especially with this guitar, which is this classical style acoustic guitar, which is something I've never done before. So the main thing that I've got in the back of my mind is, once I string this thing up, is it going to play or is it going to fold in on itself, to be honest with you? And so I suppose I was getting to that point where I was sort of rushing towards the end, and then I started looking at the elements that I was putting on the guitar. I mean, it's got dolphins carved in the top, so then I'm sticking a boat bridge on like this, and well, it just didn't look right. I mean, it just looked rubbish, to be honest with you, when it all went together. And I've got a tail stop, which is in the shape of a dolphin's tail. And I don't know if you can see that, but I've made it out of a thing called Panga Panga. And the grain is running this way, which is exactly the same way as the strings. So once I put any tension on this top E string, it just ripped out. So that was, a bit of a disaster. So
in a way, though, Dave, that's like trial and error, the iterations of doing something new.
Yeah, I suppose it is to a certain extent, but when you're getting so close, you just want to get it done. And I've sort of said, right, okay, I've got to stop, got to slow down now, and try and put as much effort in now as I did at the beginning when I was building this thing. But I do it every time, and I get so disappointed towards the end of a build because I think, this is crap, this isn't going to work at all. And it's trying to get out of that mindset, I think. And I just wonder if other people have that as well, or is it just me?
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
I mean, especially
No, I think that's
yeah, I mean, especially with those experimental guitars, Ray, that you're doing with the printing and stuff. I mean, it's all on a computer, and then you've got to see it come together, presumably, at the end.
Yeah, and to a little bit more. It's like when you build a guitar, Dave, it takes, what, weeks from start to finish?
It's about a year now. Yeah.
So I can actually go, and this is probably actually my problem, is I can go from reels of material to a guitar in an entire weekend. I can get everything done and assembled in one weekend. That's using a prefabricated neck outright, but it's when I make the neck, it takes me an extra day or a week. But the body, a weekend is all it takes me. So Sunday afternoon, I hit this point where it's just like, I'm looking at the printer and it's still going. And it's like, this thing's got to get done. I'm waiting for adhesives to dry. I'm waiting for the Amazon guy to knock on my door. And the amount of times that I've finished up a guitar, well, actually like the black and yellow one behind me here, that was supposed to have the pickups in that were supposed to be EMG. They are not. The pickups arrived on the Monday. So Sunday afternoon, they got a pair of Wilkinsons, and I printed some covers for them. And I will one day, more than likely never, put the EMGs into it.
Yeah, I know what you
remember Ben Crow. I remember Ben Crow once saying something like 80% of the work is in the last 20% of the build, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always think of Ben Crow. I mean, because as he says, I mean, it is the finishing part which makes the guitar, isn't it? I mean, you can put all that effort into cutting the wood, etc., or doing it, but it's that finish that people will see at the end.
But that is always. that is always a part where it's hardest to have the patience to work with.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, my therapy, I've been watching a lady who's actually based in Kiev, a lady called Tanya. I don't know, can't pronounce
Oh,
it
she's
properly.
brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Amazing. But it's just the patience that this lady, she repairs guitars. I mean, she just strips them down and then puts them back together. And it's so therapeutic watching this process that she goes through, because, you know, the care she puts into every stage of it is quite amazing.
I know the one. Yeah, it's.
I'm just going to find her to share.
Is it Tanya Shipuk or something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I was watching one, and I think the air raid sirens went, and the poor girl had to dive into the shelter. I mean, it's amazing how they're sort of working. It looks a normal environment, but it obviously clearly isn't, is it? But the work that she does is incredible. Yeah, it's just a whole approach. I think is you know, it's that care and attention to detail that I need to put into the end of a guitar, not just at the beginning.
So I think I follow on YouTube as well, but the main thing I like about her is the reels on Instagram, really.
Yeah, it's YouTube that I see her on, but yeah.
So I guess YouTube is probably longer videos.
Yeah,
The
they're
real-
about 30 minutes usually, but yeah, it's
Oh, amazing.
yeah, but they're good. I always watch it while I'm washing up. I haven't got a dishwasher, so
But there's a lot of detail and skill in her work. It's brilliant.
yeah.
Definitely check it out. Okay, so YouTube too. But let's go back to the top so people can see her name.
And they're not really like instructional videos or anything like that. It's just. I think, remember, she doesn't even really talk or doesn't talk at all.
She
during her
doesn't talk,
videos.
no.
It's just focusing on the work, and you just really see her hands and the tools coming into play. It's actually amazing. From her videos, I actually learned a lot just by watching.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's how I should do it.
It's funny how there's a lot of people we all watch that are the same, but we haven't necessarily talked about them before. And then suddenly someone mentions them, and we're like, oh yeah, we've seen her because she's very good.
Yeah.
It makes actually watching hers. And I was thinking about this the other day. We've had Simon on from 81 Guitar Works. I want to say 81. It's 85. I'm going mad now. 81. I'll double check that in one moment. Oh, he's gonna be annoyed that I've forgotten this. Let's have a quick look. There it is, 81 Guitar Works. Yeah, he's been on our show before. He does a lot of repair work, and I feel like there's something about what he does where he has a guitar in and he gets it done, and then he makes a little video of it, and it's up and it's out back to the client. And I feel like that he does make guitars as well, but I feel like that if I had that ability to just finish a guitar, I'd be so much happier. Because getting back to this idea of rushing at the end, one of the problems I have with almost all my guitars that I make is I spray them with something that, especially nitro, and you've got to leave it a month. And I leave it a month, and in that time I've started another one, and I'm kind of more focused on that other one. And then when I can leave that to wait, I've got a new idea. And so sometimes I go back, I just finally go back, and I'm sort of rushing through it. I can never quite finish it. I've got a few here, like those two that I broke for the Brighton Guitar Show. Just need to make replacement pick guards. It's been a month. It's probably 3 or 4 days work on each, but I just haven't done it. And
it'll
just
probably be another 6 months before you get around to it, right?
Yeah. But sometimes I do finish them, and then I forget to put them up for sale. It's like, how is this? Like, I got one out of the case the other day to play it. I thought, I'm surprised this hasn't had anyone interested or anyone, because sometimes people just put in really low ball offers on guitars I have on for sale. And I haven't had anything up. And I checked, it wasn't up for sale. I'd somehow not done the listing. It was ridiculous. But this sort of links onto another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is Eddie, who's in the chat, Electric Lady Guitars, he put a reel up or a post on Instagram the other day talking about the difference potentially from getting a guitar from a factory and getting from a boutique builder, in that he'll finish his guitar off, but when we're talking about all this rushing at the end, you then have the patience of you've made that guitar, and he comes back to it. He was saying, I think every few days for a couple of weeks to double check everything about it. And sometimes he says you'll find these really minor things, like he was marking off, for example, on the one he was talking about on the frets, bits that needed leveling, but it was so like minuscule that it would pass to the factory no problem. But as a boutique builder, someone who's got that time to go back to it and check it and play it, you notice those things and you can make those changes. And that's what definitely happens with me when I've got a guitar. I normally have it a month or so before I even think of listing it, so I can keep checking all of those things. So there's always the rush to get there, but then there's that kind of patience at the end, unless I forget to list it, of course.
Yeah.
I wonder if any of you go through that. Well, I appreciate, Owen, you don't make to sell, and Scott, sometimes you make for other people. But what's the turnaround once you've made it? Does it go straight out the door, or are you keeping it a bit and all of that?
For myself, it usually waits. Oftentimes, I want to go back and make revisions. I may not like the pickups. I may not. Yeah, there's so many different things. There was one I did recently where I ended up doing it 4 times purely and simply because I didn't like the position of the volume control.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Normally,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, all yours, man. I'm done.
Normally, I'm anxious to get it in the hands of who's going to have it as soon as possible, because I'm anxious for them to see how as excited, as I am. This last one, dude. Okay, I really haven't been in the shop for a year or more, maybe, and I hadn't done a whole lot on this guitar for like a year before that. I have in the last month tried to get in the shop and try to, because it's finished. The finish is on, everything. I mean, woodwork's all done. All I need to do is put the hardware on. And I've been procrastinating for a number of reasons, but one of them is it's got the really thin headstock, and I all through the build wasn't worried, and now I'm afraid that when I put strings on, it's just going to implode. Which that's stupid, like not going to the doctor because you don't want to know what the news is, But I finally got around to trying to put the hardware on, and the way the tuners were, one of them's not completely centered between the others, and it looks a little wonky, and I wanted to tilt them. And I texted the dude that this guitar is for, and I never got a reply. And I texted him the next week, and I never got a reply. And here we are 3 weeks later, and I'm like, I don't know if this dude died or he doesn't want to talk to me anymore, or so I'm going to have to make a decision on what to do with this thing. But in the meantime, I'm trying to get wires through, and the hole is really tight. So I'm trying to pull this through, and I actually rip a wire, and now I'm going to have to go back and do some splicing, and rushing turns into a big sloppy nightmare. And so when you ask that question, I'm a bad person to ask because it's been in the shop for more than a year with nothing happening.
That's like 90% of mine, I think.
And I feel like I need to wrap this thing up before I can move on to something different. Plus, life, I don't have much of a shop here at the house, but I have a little bit of an area where I can, play, and it's perfect for working on helmets and little things, but not a guitar. And trying to get used to the married life and everything. I need to do some rearranging in life so that I can go spend more time in the shop on the weekends, but because I got to keep building, and it's been too long.
Here's the thing that I noticed recently is I've only got 2 guitar shops local to me. One is a tiny family-run thing, and they don't really do new brands and do second-hand stuff, but one does a lot of new stuff, and it is all of the tat that you would expect in modern day guitar shop, fenders, gills, one or two low priced Gretsches and things like that. The finish quality on all of them is absolutely horrendous. And these are people coming in every day of the week going, I love this guitar, I want to buy this guitar, I'm going to bring this home and sleep with it in bed. It is such a great guitar. So I think as luthiers, we do beat ourselves up a little bit in terms of the finished product, because it depends on your price point, of course. If you're selling something for $5,000 to somebody, they're probably going to inspect it closely. But years ago, in a different life, back when the last recession happened, I took a decision to get employed and be a spray painter on cars. Worst decision ever. 30 grand gone up in flames. Poof. And I ended up paying back a business loan for a couple of years, and the business has since closed. But I digress. The thing that I used to do was I used to paint people's cars at their place of work, or on their driveway home, and I'd do like a car bumper in 2 hours, and it would be ready to drive. And when I had it done, like, I would see the teeniest of imperfections, like a tiny speck of dust stuck in the lacquer or something like that. And I used to beat myself up about it for the first 2 or 3 months, going, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I'll come back and do it again next weekend. Just give me another chance. It'll be great." 3 months in, I kind of had a brainwave, and I said, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to see who complains, because when you are painting outdoors, there will always be something get stuck in the paint. It's not designed to be a body shop finish. They're getting, a service that's a quarter of the price, a quarter of the time, and 90% of the quality. So it's a compromise, but it's a good compromise. Nobody complained. Not one person.
Yeah.
Oh, there should be a level of understanding there. I mean,
so
I've had similar companies come out and repair scratches and dents on cars, and I would just naturally accept that I've got someone coming out, to my place of residence or employ, and they are going to be spray painting a panel on my car in the outdoors, and they're going to be gone in several hours. I would assume that, if I complain about a speck of dust or something in there, I'm going to get told to go where to go. I'm going to get told to go jump off and kick sand.
But is perfection the enemy of done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because
I think as luthiers, right, we would freak out, like, if we went to buy a guitar that we'd given somebody $6,000 for, and we would scrutinize every little nook and cranny of that thing and go, "Oh, you've got to take the finish back to Bearwood and start again, how dare you." But, like, a lot of people out there are not going to see some things unless you actually point them out. And I'm not making an excuse for doing a sloppy job. Nobody in this chat is here because we do sloppy jobs. We're not. But I think in everything we do in life, we are our own worst critics.
Well,
so I have sorry, Scott, you carry on and I'll bring in the question about that.
I was just going to say, as perfectionists and artists, a lot of the time, most of the things we do are never really done. You have to pinch it off at some point and consider it done. But realistically, it's never finished.
Yeah. And that comes back to what I said before. A lot of us are making one-off things. Yeah. And when you make a one-off, you see all the things that you would do differently if you're doing it again. But you can't just keep changing it. So sort of linked to that, I'm on Reddit quite a lot now, looking at guitars and posting about guitars. And quite often someone will come up saying, "Should I be worried about this?" And it'll be a photo of a guitar with maybe a slight crack or scratch in the finish. And obviously, if you don't know what you're talking about, that you've just bought a guitar and that's there, you may wonder, is that going to result in something cracking and splitting more? Is it going to mean there's something internal? When a lot of the time it's just nothing to worry about at all, but you wouldn't know that necessarily. So in the chat, Thomas asked, I'll put it up again. He said, where is it? I've lost it now. Anyway, he basically asked, at what price point should you be worried about having scratches and things in your guitar, in an acoustic guitar, about it being perfect? So there it is. At what price point should you expect pixel perfect acoustic? So what I was thinking in relation to that is, it slightly depends, right? If you're buying a guitar direct from a builder, then you expect it to be coming from you with a near perfect finish. If you're buying it through a shop, it's gone through the shop, it's been opened up, it's been put on display, it's had all these things happen. There's more of a chance something can go wrong, and there's less of a chance that the person finish it will be, or who might polish it or correct it or do something to it, is going to be as careful or experienced or have as much committed to it as the person that built it originally. So I think if you're buying an expensive guitar direct from a boutique builder, you should expect a certain quality. If you've got a problem with it, you should be able to say that to someone. I think it's a bit harder if you're buying something online or from a shop to be able to expect a perfection. But maybe I'm being stupid about that. I'm not sure.
All I'd say there is I'm not sure about the sort of the pixel perfect aspect of it. I mean, the thing may look really lovely, glossy, whatever, the finish may be beautiful, but the most important thing is obviously how it plays. And I was talking to a friend today who's telling me about a Martin that he bought years ago that he could never tune. It just, the intonation was completely out on it. It was a lovely guitar, but the intonation was out. And that rings a bell with my Guild. I mean, I know they're not the top quality, but I mean, I paid a reasonable amount for it. And again, the intonation's out on that. I mean, the finish is beautiful, but you can't do much with an acoustic guitar if the intonation is out.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing, in my opinion. It's not about the looks necessarily. It's about, does the thing really play? Has it been made properly?
I'm going to get back to cars again and use another analogy, right? So if you bring your car to a body shop and you say do a full respray, they'll do a full respray and they will flatten polish it a little bit so that it looks really good, and you'll pay about $2,000 for it. But if you want them to do a proper concourse paint job where they have to wait a week for the paint to properly cure, flat it in stages, polish it back, and wait each individual time, you're going to pay another $2,000 on top of that again. So I think there's a labor element and a cost element if you're looking for an absolutely flawless guitar that has to be baked into the price, because you're talking months more of labor to get to that stage. And it's a great stage to get to, but I think somebody needs to go in with their eyes open.
Yeah.
Incidentally, the worst thing about having something that's absolutely flawless is stressing all the time about it getting its first ding, right? So I can really, really fucking relate to this because I just bought a new car last month. And I've been parking it at the furthest end of the shopping centre, so no asshole will come next to me in the park. And I've been obsessing about it. And this weekend just gone, some lovely individual decided to open their car door and introduce it to my car door. But all that stress now has vanished because the first ding is gone, right? So I think you get to that stage when you have a shiny new guitar. This guitar here, the Dargy Delight, is like a really special finish. They only made one of that in that color. I got it on stage. I had been playing with it for months. I had been mollycoddling on stage, making sure nobody went near it. And one night on a particularly low stage, I just yanked the bass up like that to play a solo and hit it on the low ceiling and took a chunk out of the paint. But then the stress stopped and I just played it and I was like, it has a ding, it's going to get more dings. So I think that first ding kind of just gets you out of that headspace. It's inevitable, it's going to happen.
Once that cherry's been popped,
Yep, that's it.
it's a free-for-all.
I remember years ago, I used to work for an artist, and he moved to a new workshop, and he was building a new desk, like workbench, basically. It was a custom workbench. He spent ages designing it. I helped him build it. We spent weeks and weeks on it. Expensive plywood surfaces and stuff. And then when he finished it, he spent quite a while looking at it, and then got a cup of coffee and put it down to leave a stain in one particular area, because he said, I just need to get it slightly ruined so I can then work on it.
Yeah.
I've never been like that. I don't care so much, but yeah, there you go.
I always think, as you talking about art there, I think that if you're worried about all this, the thing to do is to go to a modern art museum, because you look at these sort of installations there and you look sort of close up, and they're not that great. I mean, artistically, yeah, they're great, but the finishes are always pretty rubbish. And you think, well, yeah, but people think a lot of these sort of things, you know, so it sort of gives me a bit of comfort. And also watching that young lady do those repairs on the guitars as well. One of the interesting things is, I mean, she gets old knuckles and all sorts, but the finish on those guitars is not absolutely great. I mean, you can see the texture of the grain, you can see the scratches on it and all that sort of stuff. But actually, the instruments are beautiful in their own right, aren't they? So, you know.
I've seen a few of the repairers that I follow on YouTube talking about the fact that they give their, in fact, Simon from 81 Guitar Works might be one of them, that you give your client a choice when you're repairing. Like, I can repair it for this amount and it will look great, it will be fine. Or if you want it like a perfect finish, it's going to take more work, it's going to be this and it's extra. And different people want different things. I see Thomas just said that I don't mind a finish scratch or a dink in it, but I just want to do it myself. And he mentioned a guitar that he bought, and I just had a look at the website. It was Loden Guitars, and Loden Guitars are quite expensive guitars, but it looks like a lot of them are stock guitars, not built especially for you. So I feel there's a slight difference. But then when you're spending that much money, like 10 grand on a guitar, you do expect, if you've got scratches in the finish, it's a pain, right? When you're finishing, sometimes you don't see the scratches until the final buff, really, and then it suddenly is there, and you're like, oh, the only way to deal with this is to go all the way back. But if you're spending 10 grand on a guitar, you think someone in the shop would notice scratches and go back and fix it, I think. So.
See, it's for me, it's a case of, you know, if you're spending that much money on a guitar, if it needs a bare wood respray to fix that finish, then it needs that, and you do that. But on the same hand, like you were mentioning those Reddit threads where people are going like, it's got this little scratch here or nick here, and it's just like, is this a concern or a problem? I'm actually the first one that will be there, you know, be in those threads saying, look, you've just purchased a brand new guitar. You've spent all this money on it for a perfect finish. And that's why I can't buy something like a Fender or a Gibson or any of those guitars. And like you were talking about, Dave, that the finish is terrible to our standards. I'll be the first one there to say you do not accept that machine. That is not an acceptable finish. Send it back. It's got to be fixed. On the flip side of that, I'm also the first one. Like I've my Cole Clark 12-string acoustic. It came from the factory with multiple scratches and not so much scratches, but where they sort of burnt through the finish a little bit when they're polishing it. I don't care. No, just like, yeah, it's fine. Didn't mind. You know, it's a $5,500 guitar. Man, it's fine. No.
So sort of related. Another thing I've seen various people talk about on YouTube who review guitars and review a range of guitars, including budget guitars. They often talk about the idea, if you're spending just a couple of £100 on a guitar, you might as well pay for a setup as well. Like it's £300 for guitars, pay for a setup as well, and your guitar's gonna be much better. But at what point do you expect it to already have that setup to be that much better? Does that happen when you spend 400? Does it happen when you spend 500? I don't really know.
I think it very much varies on the brand. Some brands, even though they're cheap and cheerful, make a half decent effort of getting the neck set up okay. If we talk about Fender, I wouldn't think they'd bother their arses with anything less than one of their custom shop range. They just slap them out and get them into the shop and let the shop worry about it. And it's become a revenue stream for shops as well. So I think the shops are quite happy that the guitars are coming in like garbage because they can charge, you know, essentially for a job that requires no consumables other than a bit of sandpaper, maybe, and a bit of polish. It's just profit on labor. So I think shops actually benefit from it.
Well, yeah, I think you also have to consider with the big companies, they're going to be shipping all over the place and
everywhere. Yeah,
and
everywhere.
a lot of times there's no point in really worrying about the setup until it's acclimated to the environment it's going to be. But still, it says something when you put in the effort to actually do at least some part of most of the way, an average setup,
There's a limit. On the same hand, it's just like I completely agree with that. But on the same hand, like if I buy any guitar, I shouldn't have to start tapping down frets because they've lifted, or if my hands, the side of my hands come away, covered in blood because of the fret ends, slicing them up, we got a problem. But other than that, look, I when I play in a guitar shop, I don't expect it to be set up. I expect it the action to be high or too low or whatever. They've pulled it out of the box, they've stuck it on the shelf. When you leave the shop with it, I expect it to be at a different point then.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, my second guitar I ever had, I bought with my own money. It was a yellow Yamaha, and I still have that guitar, and it still plays awesome. And I never touched the setup because I knew I didn't understand anything about this hardware, so I left it the hell alone. Whoever set it up at the shop, and I'm sure whoever they had working in the shop probably did some setup on it when it came in, or maybe not. Maybe it came from factory. I don't know, but it was set up beautifully, and I've never touched it. And it's to this day, it's still an awesome playing guitar. So I don't know. Maybe that's just kudos to Yamaha.
Again, with those reviewers, sometimes I see people unbox, and the guitar is in tune and it plays well. I'm like, how does that happen? Like, I don't ship my guitars with the strings tight. I always loosen them. I don't know why. At some point, I've heard that's the safe thing to do if you're shipping them in an airplane. So it seems to make sense. It's not hard for someone to tune it up at the other end, but we do that. I don't know. And I know we've had on, for example, we had Mike from Ingold Guitars talking about the fact that he had some guitars that he was really happy with. Took them to NAMM maybe, and when he got there, the climate was so different that he'd noticed there were problems with the ends of the fret, and that happened because of the massive climate change of, I guess, transporting them in a car over a long distance. But he's there to fix it. That's fine, and that rung true with me because that's that thing of me not always selling my guitar straight away. One of my guitars I had for, I think, 2 years before maybe 3 years before I sold it. And one reason was it wasn't up for sale to start with because I was using it as a demo for things. And I'd take it to guitar shows and everyone that played it loved it and said it played really well. And that was like amazing to me because I always have this imposter syndrome. Like, is what I've done good? Is the fretwork good? And everyone said it was great. Everyone loved playing it. Then I put it up for sale. Someone bought it, shipped it to America. And I just got like a really horrible email from them saying how rubbish it was because all the frets had sprouted and all of this. And I was like, but I know that's not how it left the shop. And I know other people played it well. And I don't think they're lying to me. Something's happened on the journey there. So then you've got to deal with the client to try and work it out. It's much harder when you're shipping it to another country and you've got to pay tax each way to resolve something. But
I think bringing it back to the argument of what would you pay to, or what would you expect at a price point for something to be in good condition. The likes of Gibson and Fender and Jackson and all those guys are not shipping one guitar to Europe. They're shipping containers of stuff, and they're making stuff locally in some regions as well. So I think I would have an expectation that if Fender are sending over 5,000 Strat Squires to Thomann, and Thomann are going to sell them to every kid learning guitars across Europe, that they would have solved for humidity for that journey. With classical instruments, I remember when I played violin as a kid, we used to put little, it was like a black rubber tube that went down into the F-hole that we would soak in water to keep the instruments, at the right humidity when we were traveling. So there are solutions for all that. And a big player in the instrument industry like Fender or Gibson or any of those guys should have that solved. So I think humidity for the smaller builders, absolutely legit problem. Humidity with the big guys, don't buy it. I still think the guitars are coming in poor condition with, scratchy frets. Whatever about frets sticking up, even the ones that are put down properly tend to be not finished properly. Bridges not set up properly out of the factory. Intonation not set up properly out of the factory. These are all defaults they can dial in and just put them in every time themselves, but they don't bother.
Yeah. So again, we have had people on before. There's archive of all our old interviews. So we now do this sort of live chat each week, but we used to do 1.5 hour interviews with people. We had Andrew in from Jackson Guitars, and he was saying that essentially in factories, they can do whatever you want, but you pay them a certain amount. So if you're paying them more, you're going to get an amazing setup guitar. If you're paying them less, you're going to get a good setup guitar. So you get these kind of differences that you might expect from a factory. But just now in the chat, Neil was saying he bought a £200 guitar from Lag, an acoustic guitar, and it was so good that he emailed them to say how amazing it was. So I wonder if when that's happening, it may just be fluke, but it's probably that they're a smaller company and their factory is spending more time on it, or has a slightly different approach to how they do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Good question. Because it's interesting what you're saying, Owen, about like intonation. I can accept that the majority of people that work in these larger factories, they're not necessarily that invested in the job, so to speak. It's not their passion like it is for us. On the same hand, they also have SOPs that they have to follow. They must do this step, this step, this step, this step before the guitar can go out. And I actually completely agree with you that there is absolutely no reason for a guitar to leave without the intonation being very close. Because
it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be good.
Yeah, like based upon what string gauge I'm using, I already know the rough shape of what the saddles are going to be. And
like Fenders are all 25.5 inches, and they're all putting 9 or 10 gauge strings in them. They can just literally have a China graph for the bridge, set them to that, and go ta-da!
Yeah, and when I do that, I'm within 3 to 4 cents of each string. Yet you play some, and it's like they're all perfectly level. It's like, who did this?
I'm just going to interrupt for a moment because we've got a number of people in the chat that haven't been in there before, and we've got like 25 people watching, which is more than about the last few weeks we've had that many. So great. Welcome everyone. And if you're new here, please let us know in the chat or in the comments, how did you find this? And if you are new here and you haven't subscribed, obviously do that. But I really want to get this out to people that might find it useful, but not just the live chats we have, that whole archive we've got of interviews with people. So it'd be great if you delve through in the archive and find a particular interview you find useful. Maybe you want to share it on a Facebook group or in Reddit or with someone you know, or maybe you just want to leave a comment on it, say hi. That'd be brilliant. We're not in it to make loads of money, but we're in it to share lots of of education, of enthusiasm, of ideas, and hopefully inspire people. And if you are, as I can tell from the chat, someone that's some of the new people in there are quite versed with guitar building, it seems, and with guitar knowledge, and you want to be more involved, just drop me a line. We sort of have this open each week at the moment, so that what happens is anyone that's around that wants to join in with the chat just lets me know and I'll send them the link. So that's why it rotates each time. So it'd be brilliant to have some new faces in or some new comments in. Not that I want to get rid of any of these faces here.
Good recovery. And actually, if
hear what
any
you're
of you guys
saying.
have social media, pop it in as well. So if any of you guys have your own Instagram accounts, the new people, pop them in there. We'd love to see them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah. And also, I've put it up once. I'll try and put it up while we're chatting now. We do have an Instagram account as well. It's managed mainly by Corey, who's not with us at the moment. And essentially, the Guitar Builders Collective Instagram account just shares other people's builds. It doesn't really post or interact so much. The idea is if you follow it, it will share builds by other people that you can then go and follow, and you can then chat to them and sort of widen the pool of people. And then on the Facebook group, I noticed the Facebook group's got about 1,500 members now, and that tends to be a little bit of what I've just said, of sharing things, but it's mainly people coming up with, sharing what they're working on, asking questions and looking for support. It's brilliant.
Good.
Hey, did anyone have anything else they wanted to say about any of those topics today?
No, I just got to finish the guitar.
Don't we all?
I've actually now got to strip all the frets out because I'm just not happy with the frets. I'm not happy with the fretboard. I mean, the whole lot's coming off.
I will say I'm going to emphasize this a bit. Back in December, I did a Kickstarter to try and sell some guitars, and through that, I sold 3 guitars, and 2 of them are new builds. And I'm working on them at the moment. The aim was to get them finished by the start of August, but I'm a little bit behind. They should be finished by the start of September. One of the people that bought one, I haven't heard from since December. I've messaged them a few times because there's lots of options that I had for the guitar. And I've just basically said, look, I'm not hearing from you. I'm going to pick what I think are the best standard options that you can have, and I'm going to do it. I've still not heard back from them. So, like, it's a month off from shipping. I want to show them what I've got now because, again, there's one more choice. If I don't hear from them again, I'm not really sure what to do. I'm going to message Kickstarter and see, is this a thing that happens, that people just disappear? And what do I do about it? But I think what will probably happen is I'll just have that guitar and it'll come round to guitar shows with me and stuff until I hear from them again. But I feel really like, I hope something bad hasn't happened to them. It's just emails going to spam. It's quite.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
That's disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it sounds like the same is happening with Scott, and it's that frustration of when you're, especially when you're trying to make choices for that person, and you're waiting on choices, and you want to keep the build. We were talking about rushing things, but you can't rush it if you don't know what they want. Thomas said, "Take it."
But in my case, there were times I would reach out and say, "Look, dude, I'm sorry, I've been tied up with all this, and I haven't put any work in." And he's like, "Don't even worry about it. Just whenever you get to it, you get to it." I don't know if he was just saying that and really was starting to get, peeved that nothing was happening. I don't know. But, I mean, at some point, I feel like try to find out if the dude's okay.
I mean, someone asked in the chat, they have fully paid for it. Like, the thing about the Kickstarter, unlike any other guitar build, is that Kickstarter took all the money once the campaign finished and then paid it to me minus the fees. So I've been fully paid for the guitar. Normally I take 75% up front and 25% at the end. So I feel like I don't know what to do.
I never got paid anything for this one, but he did buy all the hardware and stuff. So
right.
But now I'm worried. I'm worried that the dude's okay.
Yeah.
If he doesn't want to talk to me anymore, I don't want to roll up.
Well, that's understandable.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to roll up to his house and either talk to his mourning widow.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I got is all of mine is via the Kickstarter interface or the back and forth. So I don't really have access to looking up who they are very much. I can't look them up on social media or go to their house or anything like that or give them a call. I know they're in the UK. That's it. So if you're watching,
thing here, hey, sorry about your husband dying. You don't play a guitar yourself by any chance, do you?
For the new price. Yeah.
So he ordered this thing. He hasn't paid for it. I've made it. Someone's got to pay.
Sounds like porn.
We have this thing in the UK called the premium bonds, which is a a method of saving that the government came up with, and basically you put your money in, and you get a bond and a number on it, and every so often there's a draw. Every month there's a draw, and there's a winner, and you can win 25 quid, or you can actually win £1 million. Well, apparently there are £100 million of unclaimed prizes out there. So, if people are prepared to forget that, then your guitars.
Yeah, I think there's an unclaimed lottery that's just expired of £1 million.
And really,
Yeah.
I don't think the premium bonds ever expired, do they? Obviously, some of the people have, unfortunately. But there you go. Oh dear.
Oh well.
I don't know. Is there a moral to this story? I'm not sure. But
Well, on potential sad notes of what's happened to our clients, maybe we could say goodbye. We're back next week, but then I've got a few weeks where I'm not necessarily around because of being away with my family and various other things.
okay, well, we've got plenty to get on with anyway. So, anyway.
Well, thank you everyone that's here. Thank you everyone in the chat. Thank you everyone in the future that's watching and leaving a comment. That's great. Yeah. Till next time, happy strumming, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.